Let me turn myself down just in case I get excited.
Yeah. No, we want you to be excited.
Okay.
I'm going to light a candle and
Okay.
I'm going to pull a card from the
Yes.
Mystical Shaman Oracle deck.
Okay.
So here's a candle for us. Oh, you got the ghost dance.
Ooh. The ghost dance.
Yes. The ghost dance of the American Plains Indians united the spirits of the living with those of the ancestors to bring peace to the world. When the ancestors are honored, they bring harmony to us. Honor the spirits of the ancestors and receive their lessons and gifts. This includes honoring your own past lives. This is the invitation. The ancestors have a message of healing and a powerful medicine to offer you. Create a sacred moment at your altar, light a candle to them, and let their wisdom infuse you. At this stage in your life, you are done repeating their tragic stories. Step into the abundance that is offered to you. Receive the gifts of those that have come before you and write a new story for your life. Does that resonate in any way?
It's interesting because when I was thinking about doing this, and I was trying not to think too hard, I wanted just for it to be what it was. But I put on my necklace that I wear all the time, and both charms are from my Titi Laura, who is passed. And I was thinking about her and thinking about my grandfather and my Uncle Tony. So all three people have passed, and they were the people that came through actually, I don't know, half an hour before we sat down to talk. So that does resonate.
Gosh, I have chills.
I wasn't sure, what that was about. So, yeah.
So tell me about them. What have you learned from them? How have they contributed to the essence of who you are?
Well, my Titi Laura used to take care of me. She was my babysitter for a really long time when I was growing up. She's my grandmother's older sister. And I feel like she taught me so much about who I am, about being Puerto Rican, in the food and in the language, and just the way she fiercely loved me. Unfortunately, she's the first person who introduced me to coffee, and I'm a coffee addict. So
Oh,
like at 2 years old, I was drinking café con leche with her. And then my grandfather is he was an incredibly social person. He would talk to anyone. And I think I definitely got that from him, where I'll just strike up a conversation in the grocery store and then I'll get their whole life story. And my Uncle Tony, I guess, influenced how I feel about where I'm from, at least on one side of my family, the side that's Puerto Rican. And he could make and do anything with nothing. He also smoked like a chimney. And I have to say, I have this Pavlovian response. In fact, we were just walking by a guy smoking a cigar on his front porch this morning after we were walking the dog. And I told my husband, I was like, my mouth just watered. I have this Pavlovian response to nicotine because my uncle smoked a ton and he didn't care. He was like, this is what I want to do. And I'm going to go out smoking. But he loved his life. That was a long answer to your question.
no, it's a beautiful answer. So, part of your life is about telling stories.
Yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit about how they influenced your observation and your listening to story.
Well, I grew up around this side of my family. My father's from Iran, and his parents were not happy that he married outside of the culture. And my dad had a really tricky relationship with them, and I don't even know that much about it. Speaking of stories. So I've sort of made up a story in my head about what happened there, and I don't even know if it's true. But I don't know that side of my family. I was around the Puerto Rican side of my family. And they were sort of old school in that you could be around when all of the adults were talking, but you couldn't really chime in. So I did a ton of listening to their stories growing up, and that's sort of how I informed my identity. They love to talk about life back home and people who had passed. And I was just like sitting there. I'm the firstborn grandchild, so I was the only one for 4 years. And so I remember just sitting there enthralled in these like stories that they told about people that were dead.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't talk so directly to me about these things. It was mostly like picking it up from being in the corner and listening. So I think I'm a good listener.
Yeah. So you said you were wearing charms from them. Do you have an ancestor altar?
I don't. So when the card you read said the thing about the altar, I was like, oh, I should probably put one together.
Yeah. So ancestors often come through as chills to me, and they definitely were like, I had so many chills. And then, yeah, they're like, yeah, we want to, we want a little celebration. Some people, ancestors just want like a photograph and a candle. They want it to be pretty simple.
Yeah.
Yours want food. I mean, they're like,
Oh,
we
really?
want you to literally make offerings to us.
Were they specific on what kind of food they want? I'm a good cook.
Are you a good cook?
I am.
No, but they said, this is funny. So they're like, put our pictures out, put a candle, we want some flowers, and then tell her to ask us and we'll tell her.
Okay.
They want a whole dinner. Usually people, I sometimes say like have a dinner at Samhain at Halloween, that it's a
Yes.
great time to have an
Yes.
ancestor dinner and set places for them and fix their favorite meals. But they're like ready for the food now. They're ready.
Well, my Uncle Tony's very picky, so
Oh,
we'll see.
yeah, that's funny. They're like food. They must know you're a good cook.
Cool.
So I want to read you something that Theo said about you.
Okay.
Shereen always seems a few steps ahead. She is ambitious, and yet she holds that with loving and listening to her internal voice. She's done so much to set her life up to align with her values. She's also vulnerable and funny and holds life lightly. And so our question for you is how?
How? Oh my
How?
God, that is so nice. That makes me want to like cry. I think that I am able to do that because not doing it feels so bad. And I don't want to feel that feeling of, I don't know, it feels, I'm in this, I swirl in this place of anxiety and imposter syndrome, and I'm never enough. I'm never good enough. I'm never going to do enough. And when I'm high vibing, when I'm in my good place and I know what I'm here to do, and when it is connected to who I really feel like I am inside, then it's just right and it feels good. And I don't really know the answer to that question, how I'm doing it.
Well, and I think that's one of the questions really of the show is like, what is our authentic voice? What is congruent? What's the difference between people pleasing and being a servant leader?
Thank you. I don't know.
And what's the difference between anxiety and intuition? So, yeah, I would just love to hear your thoughts on that. I don't think there's an answer, but like, how do you think about those things?
I think I definitely struggle with the people pleasing aspect of things. I want people to like me. I really want people to like me. And ever since I was a little girl, if someone didn't like me, it just crushed me. I was so sensitive to it. One of my earliest memories, my grandmother had this house in Sacramento, and across the street there was a little girl, and there was a swing on a tree in front of their house, and I wanted to see if I could play with her so we could play on the swing together. So my grandparents were like, go over there, introduce yourself, go be brave. remember how old I was, but I remember knocking on the door and the little girl coming out. I don't remember the conversation that we had, but it was very brief. And she called me stupid. And I was devastated. I was so crushed. And it truly is one of my earliest memories. And I remember thinking, like, why does she think I'm stupid? Why doesn't she like me? And so I want everyone to like me. And I do think that I do a lot of people pleasing. And that's something I need to work on, because I know logically that not everyone is going to like you. And it may have absolutely nothing to do with you, and that you shouldn't take it personally. And I know all these things very logically, but it's been very difficult to shake it off and just be like, who cares? Who cares what they think? Like yesterday, I was in dance class, and at the end of dance class, you get in a circle and you dance by yourself. It's always something that I kind of hate doing because you're in the middle of the circle and all eyes are on you.
Oh.
And so the person who invited me into the circle knew that I was a capoeirista. I played this Afro-Brazilian martial art, which is very acrobatic. And I did that like, but it's still in you, because you've been doing it for so long. So he was like, come, like, show us some of your movements. And there was a moment where I did something and I fell on my butt in the middle of the circle. And then I got up and I like started samba dancing right away, and I kind of shook it off. But I swear for 10 minutes after, I was like, that was super embarrassing. I'm really embarrassed. I embarrassed myself in front of all these people. And then the voice in my head was like, who cares what they think? Who cares what they think? And it's like that constant war of, I want to be the best. I want everyone to like me. And also at the same time, I don't want to care about what people think of me. And those two things cannot be married. I don't think that's a happy marriage between the two. So that's my struggle. I want to be good and supportive and also not care what people think about me. Is that possible? I don't know. Hopefully by the time I'm dead.
Yeah, I think when we figure these things out, that's enlightenment, and then you're dead. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or dead and then enlightened. So when you feel like you're congruent, how do you know that you're aligned with your true nature versus trying to do something for somebody else? Like, does the energy feel different? Does your
Yes.
voice come through differently?
I don't feel drained. I feel energized.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I'm in what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm doing it the right way when I walk away from an interaction with someone and I feel that energy from that interaction rather than feeling exhausted and drained. And there have been a lot of times where I feel like someone's like doing the chupacabra and sucking all my energy. And then when it's done right, you walk away from the experience feeling full of life and full of energy rather than drained and like a zombie.
Mm. David White was talking about exhaustion. He's a poet. He said, when you're exhausted, you want to think about being wholehearted.
Hmm.
There's this drain if you're not in whatever your experience is in a wholehearted way.
Yes.
And I've been thinking about how much of my life I may have lived without my whole heart. And that can be really draining.
And I feel like this time in my life, I'm recognizing that, and I don't want to keep going. If I have the privilege to live the next half of my life fully, I don't want to go through it doing what I was doing for the first half, where I was allowing my heart to be taken
Mhm.
and or giving it away
Mhm.
in not a way that felt right.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about being a powerful woman, maybe about your thoughts about magic or how you interpret the word witch.
Well, I did capoeira for many, 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 many years of my life. And when you get your first belt at the first ceremony, they give you a nickname. And my nickname in Portuguese is witch.
Tell me what that is.
It's bruxa.
Bruxa?
Yeah. Like
Bru
bruja in Spanish, but
Yes,
bruxa in Portuguese.
bruxa.
Yes.
Why?
I have no idea.
I have chills again. I love this.
I have no idea. And I was offended
Oh, you
because
were offended.
I was slightly offended because I was like, witches don't have a good connotation, or, you think of somebody with a pointy hat, riding a broom in the sky, wearing all black. And I was in my early 20s. And I didn't think in that moment that I got my nickname that, oh, this means you're powerful. You're so powerful. And then when I went to a different capoeira school, they were like, well, Bruxa, that's not right. We're going to call you Bruxinha. We're going to call you Little Witch. They were like, do you want us to change your nickname? We feel like that nickname is not right. And I was like, no, I actually don't. I want to keep it. That's my nickname. And I own it. But then they called me Bruxinha, which was Little Witch. They were like, oh, we're not ready for you to be the big witch with the big energy. We'll call you Little Witch.
That's interesting that they were deciding.
Yeah. I love the name now.
So they saw something powerful in you that you didn't see in yourself. What was the journey to owning it?
I'm still on that journey.
Mm.
And I have therapy every week to help me figure that out.
Be a powerful woman.
Yes. Or to be able to embrace the powerful woman and
Mhm.
not hide her from the world.
And so tell me a little bit about what you do in the world. I mean, you help people find their voice, right?
Yes. Right now, I'm a journalism professor. But before that, I was a host of a show. But while I was hosting my podcast, I was also mentoring the young producers who came in, and which was something I loved to do. And then before that, I was a producer. I had been a producer for a really long time. So being behind the scenes and making sure that whoever was on the mic sounded the best that they could sound. And I love that collaborative feeling where you're all working together to make something really, really good. And I would say that I'm happiest supporting other people be the best that they can be. And once I accept that that is my true calling and kind of diminish the ego a little bit, I think I'll be who I'm supposed to be. I think now that I'm thinking about this, I liked being behind the mic so much more than being in front of the mic. That's when I'm happiest. Like, I'm happiest working with my students, and I love collaborating and helping other people reach their potential.
So there's so many distorted voices out there right now. How do you think about disruption, especially as women and as powerful women? How do we use our voice effectively for change?
I think that's a very good question, and I think I'm going through an evolution in my thought process around this. And I'm deep in it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I went through a time period where I thought that having a very powerful, strong voice, maybe being slightly more aggressive in my approach, was the right way to do things. And I've been, as I'm getting older, thinking about doing even more to understand where everyone is coming from. Like, do I do the thing where I break everything down into a binary, good and evil, us versus them? It's like I want to bring a little bit more gray into my life. And in order to do that, I think you have to sort of sit back and understand that it's okay not to be pushing with your full force. Maybe there's a way that's softer and more loving and not talking so much and listening even more than you already did. I don't know. I'm reading this book about high conflict right now, and it's all about how we maneuver in the world and who we are as we're maneuvering? And are we people who are conflict entrepreneurs who see a conflict and we're like, ooh, we can latch on that and like make a name for ourselves based on that conflict? Or are we somebody who like starts a conflict? Or are we somebody who tries to mediate conflict and find truth? And I really want to be that person who is truly finding truth. And I feel like there's so much in media right now that's about being aggressive, having a point of view, being super righteous in your point of view, and making it quite a binary point of view. They are bad and evil. We are good and righteous. And I'm not quite sure that is actually making change in this world. And so I thought maybe that I was running into those same patterns, and I want to break out of that. I want to do something different. I always said on Code Switch, it's complicated, but I want to continue to complicate the narratives that we're talking about. There are so many ways to look at something, and I want to be able to look at it in all the ways. And I feel like journalism does this thing so often where they're like, what's the conflict? Find the conflict. Who's the good person? Who's the bad person? And I want to break out of that and try something new.
Mhm. Yeah, this place of non-duality right now is hard to find.
I think that's what it is. And in finding that the answer to your question, it's that. It's just, I just want to constantly fight that. Also, because of who I am, I'm Iranian, I'm Puerto Rican. I never fit into the binary of how we think about race in this country. So I always felt like there was something that we were missing in these conversations, and I want to be able to broaden them. And I think that there was a time, especially when I was doing journalism full time and you're doing it on a deadline, where it's just easier to fall into these us versus them traps. And now I can like take a step back and think, okay, is there a better way to do this? You know, I don't have a deadline breathing down my neck in the same type of way.
When you don't feel courageous, are there certain practices that you do that help bring you back to center?
I think the knee jerk thing I do is call my mom or my
Mm,
aunt to talk to them, my mom's sister, my titi. So I think that's like immediate. If I'm
mm,
not connected to who I am, they're there to remind me.
mhm,
They'll often say, go take a walk by yourself, go take a hot bath, have
mm,
a cup of tea.
mm,
And it's funny, it's because they're getting older. And so I'm in that stage in my life where I am thinking a lot about death. And going back to the theme of the card, I have been thinking a lot about when they go, what am I going to do? Like, how
mm,
am I going to function? They are the people that I call when I need to be grounded in who I am. And what
mhm,
happens when they're gone? But I think this conversation is very much like they're not going to, they'll never be gone. And I know that, but it's really good to hear
mhm,
that they'll never be gone. So I think that I need to be ready to sort of take that baton on, because they won't be here for me to call them in that same way. And I'll need to just do it for myself, take a walk, take a hot bath, have some tea, and know that they're guiding me from beyond
mm.
to do those things. But that's what I do.
So, what is in your heart today when you've thought about ancestors and your legacy and your work? Like, what do you want to say? What do you want to put in the river?
I I would like to not be afraid. I would like to be brave stepping into this next chapter of my life. And I do think that the people who came before me have a lot of wisdom to share, and I want to be open to hearing that guidance. I've been watching a lot of near death experience videos on YouTube before I go to sleep. I don't know how I got on this, but they're all very similar in that when they pass, they feel this unconditional love
Mm,
and this great power that they are loved no matter what they do and no matter who they were. And I think that is such a beautiful thing. And I want to like bring that into my own experience in my own life so that it's okay if I try things and I make mistakes and I'm not perfect. That's what's going to help me be brave, is knowing that in the end, what is waiting for me is absolute unconditional love. Like, I really believe that that's the case. And I've been thinking about that quite a bit. So, to answer your question, what am I going to put in the river? I mean, are we putting good things in the river or bad things in the river? I don't know. I'd like to throw my fear into the river and have it be washed away.
Yes, it's a both and. It's not an either or. You can throw both things.
My fear, my anxiety, and being super hard on myself, I'd like to chuck that into the river. And then the good things, just focusing on having meaningful connections in the world with other people. I think that's what matters. Obviously, I mean, I feel like it sounds very cliche, but I'm in this period in my life where I'm like, that's what matters, is being with people and having an authentic connection with people. So I would like to be the ancestor that is remembered for doing that and having done that in a way that people might be able to model it for themselves.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I have been thinking a lot about what's next, meaning not like what's next for me, but like what's next after this life is over. I never thought about that as deeply as I've been thinking about it now. And I just know that this next chapter is the chapter before the end. I just feel it. And I want to live my life so that I can look back when you're just like going over everything that happened in your life at the end, when you're, you walk through the tunnel or whatever it is, and you're reviewing everything that happened in your life, and you're like, all right, I did that the good way. I was good. I was a good person. I just want to be a good person. I just want to be a good person. And I think this next half of my life is about doing that.
Well, a medicine woman that I see, I really struggle with being enough without doing anything. I really
Yes.
struggle with that. And so one of the things we talk about, is productivity equals value, and that's actually not true. But she said to me, now really isn't the time to do anything. Now is the time to find a place inside of you that will hold the potential for the future.
Mm.
And it's not time yet. And so I'm thinking about all of us, with a little seed inside of us, with a hard shell that will withstand fire.
I like that.
And that it's not time yet, but that we're all cultivating goodness, worthiness, being enough just by being and holding that seed.
I love that. I need that because I am very similar.
Yeah.
Where if you're not making something and you're not doing something, then you're not somebody.
And right now, I think part of our job is to hold a seed of potential that it's not safe to plant yet.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That feels so right.
Yeah. And it's hard if you're a warrior, I'm a warrior and it's hard. I want to fight. And I think we're not at the fight point yet.
That's how I feel. I feel very drawn to wanting to be in community and in collaboration. And it's that I want to fight in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to sit down at the table and maybe listen in a different way. And I just feel called to that. Mm-hmm. I am very much thinking about what it means to belong and how all human beings want to belong. All of us, no matter who we are, want to belong and want to feel like we're a part of something. And I never want to be the person who's like get out of here. You don't belong here. I want to be the person that's like, come and welcome you into my community, not the person who's like, I'm too cool and you're not allowed in here. I don't like that. I don't want to be around that. Oh my gosh, that's all I wanted. I just wanted people to like get me. And we all feel this way. You know, for me, my story was, it was because I didn't fit into this racial binary in this country, and no one sort of understood. So white people would be like, well, you're not white. And black people would be like, well, you're not black. And I would be like, well, what am I then? Where do I belong? And this was a long time ago. And I think we were much more expansive when it comes to race. But being Iranian and Puerto Rican, even in my own family structure, I didn't feel like I belonged. Like half my family couldn't pronounce my first name. And so some would call me by my middle name, and that was on my Puerto Rican side. I didn't even know my Iranian side, yet I had this very strong Iranian name. And then when I would interact with Persian people, they couldn't understand why I didn't know very much about what it meant to be Persian. And I just always felt like I was on the outside looking in. And that was my story. Speaking of stories, I've been telling that story for so long, and I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of over telling the story that I don't belong and that I'm on the margins, and I do everything that I do because I'm on the margins. It's like, no, I'm on the inside, and now it's about inviting other people to be with me. Like, I'm ready to like stop telling that story. And honestly, I've built my whole career, my life on that story. What happens when you have developed everything, your whole everything based on a story, and it's time to change your story? That's where I'm at. I'm trying to figure this out, but I know that I'm ready to tell a new story about myself, and I'm ready for that story to be a past story. But that's like sort of the foundation for everything that I have built my career upon, and so much of what I do upon is that I'm Iranian, I'm Puerto Rican, I don't fit in anywhere, you know? And that's real, that's true, but I'm sort of ready to see what else I can talk about.
Yes. The ancestors have a message of healing and a powerful medicine to offer you. Create a sacred moment at your altar, light a candle to them, and let their wisdom infuse you. At this stage in your life, you are done repeating their tragic stories. Step into the abundance that is offered to you. Receive the gifts of those that have come before you, and write a new story for your life. So may it be, and so it is. Here's to your new story.
Thanks. I'm like over here crying.
I love this conversation so much. Thank you for being willing to throw your voice in the river.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to do this. It was really wonderful. I'm glad I'm going to have therapy in 2 hours, because I'm going to have to talk about this in therapy. Thank you.
Thank you and your ancestors for being with us.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Take care.